G'day and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are attempting to fire up the Morris Minor for the first time and get oil pressure. Alright folks, welcome back and thanks for tuning in. On this episode, like I said, we're going to be firing up the Morris Minor for the very first time. Now, I don't yet have oil pressure, and I'm sure there's people in the comment section saying you need to get oil pressure before you fire up the engine. Yes, I completely and totally agree and understand, but I do have assembly lubricant between all of the mating surfaces like the camshaft, the followers, all the bearings, the crank, all that sort of stuff. So what I'm aiming to do now is just start up the engine for about 30 seconds, hopefully try to run it enough, therefore I can get oil pressure. Once I've got oil pressure, I can then go, nice, excellent, we can keep going with the reassembly and get this thing running properly. Once it does start, I just have to run it for 30 seconds tops. So long as we get oil pressure within that 30 seconds, awesome. If we don't, we have another problem. So I've cranked this thing over, I've taken the spark plugs out, I've drained the battery essentially twice now, to the point where I'm just unsure if I'm actually going to get it. So it could be a blocked oil pickup. The oil pickup could be cracked. It may not be tight enough. There could be a blockage inside the engine block, which I really doubt because it's just come back from the machine shop, but you never know. Or the oil pump is at failure, or sorry, it is not at failure, it is at fault. So fingers crossed that's not the issue. So let's try and start it up, and I'm going to do this in real time. Now, I should also mention that everything is in. There's pretty much no exhaust system on it, it's just got a set of extractors. So I'm hoping to do this in one take, and fingers crossed we get oil pressure. The good thing about this, and like I've spoken about before, is get yourself an oil pressure gauge. We are running a mechanical gauge with a clear tube down there as well. So I'm going to be able to physically see when and if it decides to start. Essentially, I want to try and start it, get it up to about 2000 RPM to make sure that she's going to run. And if it does run, like I said, 30 seconds, oil pressure. If there's oil pressure, awesome. If there's not, thumbs down. So this episode is going to go really well, or it's going to go really bad, literally. All right, here we go. So got my jumper cable for the fuel pump. Let's just make sure the ignition is switched on first. Just had that in there just to make sure that everything's going to go well. Now, it may also not start the very first time. It may take a couple of tries for it to properly start. All right, oil pressure gauge is connected. And here we go. What was I going to do? I need to get a screwdriver. So good thing about this is you can just use a screwdriver to push down the starter solenoid at the front here, and then we should be right. So get the fuel pump priming. Sweet. Fuel pressure. Here goes nothing. Well, try again. That did not sound well. Let me just make sure it's not actually in gear. It could be. What do you know? It actually was. Trying to turn the entire engine and gearbox over all at once. Let's just try again. There we go. All right. Try again. Okay. It's just an engine oil cap. Give that a bit of willy. Go again. Alright, so doesn't sound like I've got spark. Oh, just move that out of the way. So what I'm going to do now is just earth the ignition lead that runs from the ignition coil. I'm just going to run it to earth and just make sure that I'm actually getting spark. As long as I get into spark, we're all good. If not, then chances are we have another problem. So, just got to find a good earth, that way I can properly see. Now, see if I get zapped on this one, hopefully not. Sweet. So I reckon the firing order is out. Given that it's cranking for so long, I would be pretty confident to say she is out. So the ignition system is doing what it should. It's getting spark, but we're not getting any fuel. And you can actually tell the difference when it cranks, when it's getting fuel and when it's not. Alright, so to me, it doesn't sound like it's getting fuel. So what we need to do is flip it around 180. So I'm just going to pull the leads off here. So this one will go to top one's up 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 2. That's 1. Right, so I'm just kind of jiggling around the firing order here. So we got 1, 3, 4, 2. All right, here goes nothing again. It could potentially fire. We'll see how we go. If it does, I need to quickly reach down in here, give it a couple of bit of willy. Where'd my screwdriver go? Just here. All right, here we go. Okay, that float bowl seems to be leaking somewhat. That's just great. I'd say it's likely just a gasket by the look of it. Okay. Alright, so what I'm just going to do is just try and give it a bit of willy. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to go back to here. So 1. Because the distributor could be out 180 degrees, which is what I thought I had before. 1, 3, 4, and 2. Alright, let's give that a shot, see what happens. Obviously not the most ideal situation. That's leaking. It's only just leaking on that rag, so that's okay. Well, it's not really, but we'll see how we go. Alright. Alright, so she's still not firing. Next thing we need to do is check to make sure she's getting spark at the cylinders. So I'm probably going to have to call this in a sec and keep going at a later date, or at a on another episode. I've just got my battery charger on there as well. Yes, I know the leads are around the wrong way, but it's actually the right way because I actually wired them incorrectly, which was a bit annoying, but anyway, that's just how it is. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that I'm actually getting spark at the spark plug, and then it's likely just going to be a fueling issue if that's the case. So I'm just going to earth out one of the leads to a spark plug. Oh, that just kicked. Woo. Okay. Let's see if we can do that again. Okay, let's see if we can just do that again. Okay, not sure what happened there. Just it almost went to kick. I'd say probably the timing is out by the look of it. Let's just have a look. Or I'm just flooding it because the carbies need to be properly tuned. Yeah, okay. All right, so this is where it becomes super frustrating because I can't recharge the battery fast enough with the engine drawing as much current as what it currently is. My battery charger, on the other hand, is trying to keep up, and we are just keeping up with it. I'm just going to see if I can just get this thing to reset, because at the moment she's not doing a thing. She's pretty much just sucking the life out of it. But the good news was she was about to fire, and I'm sure you guys did just hear that. So hopefully she gets oil pressure sooner rather than later. There's no actual leaks, which is really good. Just going to try again and just see if I can just get it to kick, because it was just about to. Yeah, so I would say it's probably a combination of timing and fuel. And I've just drained the battery. That's super frustrating. I'm flipping so close as well. So you can try again. Oh, all right. So I've pretty much at the moment drained the battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the episode. I'm just going to try and fix a couple little things here and there. And then we're going to restart it again. So whether it be today or tomorrow, I'm not entirely sure, but that's what the go is. So as you heard, it did kick, it did fire. So we know that it is somewhat good, somewhat where it needs to be. But as I said, all we need to do is just try and get this thing started and running for about 30 seconds to make sure that we get oil pressure. So we'll see you back in a jiffy. All right, so here we are on day 2. It has been about a week since I started filming the last part of this little series. I wasn't sure how long it was actually going to take me, so I'm kind of breaking it up into a little bit. Hopefully the video works out fine. Now, not only can you call me Tomo, but you can also call me Scarface, and I'll get into that shortly. So let's get back on the Morris Minor and discuss the things that we found. All right, so like I said, guys, you can call me Scarface. The reason for this is what happens when you use a pop rivet gun and you get too close, it kicks, bang, done. Scratched my face. I was doing the roof racks on my car, and yeah, one thing led to another, and it scratched me obviously across there. I thought it was fine at the time, and it wasn't until about 15 seconds later that I actually had blood gushing down my nose and my cheek. So super careful. You need to be super careful, should I say, when you're working with equipment like that. Now, it obviously wasn't planned that I had done that. The pop rivet gun that I was using was actually quite large, and I couldn't exactly get my hands around it. I was literally standing on one foot. I had one foot on the hoist. I had my other foot standing on my side stepper of my Hilux, and I was trying to rivet it from the top. I should have just got a compressed air gun and bang, 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 done it, but I figured by hand it'd be fine. I ended up getting the job done, but I'm still halfway through it. So that's the reason why you can call me Scarface for the next episode or two. So what we found with the Morris Minor, what I essentially came to the conclusion of, not only do we have a fuel leak, which I still just need to rectify. It's just one of the gaskets of the SU carby bowl at the top that goes between the bowl and the float top half of it. Just a little paper gasket that got sitting around here somewhere. Essentially, it was out of fuel. Now, the tank was completely dry, so what I think's happened is it sucked up all the fuel through the pump. It's then put it into the fuel pressure reg. It's then filled the carbies, and then just for whatever reason wouldn't start. So I'm hoping now that things, fingers crossed, actually go quite well. So let's get back to it. Let's try and get this thing started. We're going to run it for 30 seconds like I said last time, and hope to God that A, it starts, and B, that within the first 30 seconds we get oil pressure. So long as we do, wicked. If we don't, we're going to be having a bad time. All right, so we've got everything connected. We got the coil powered, got the line running from the fuel pump down to here. We should be pretty well fine. So let's give this a quick go now, see if we can do it. See if we can get this thing started. Whoa. So I'm just going to double check to make sure I've got spark. So I'm just going to disconnect this wire here and reconnect it to the ignition coil. Sorry, that's the lead that goes from the ignition coil to constant power. So long as we're getting a spark out of this lead, we should be all right. So all I'm doing there is just grabbing a screwdriver, jamming it in the end, and I'm just going to crank it and just make sure that I've actually got a spark. If I don't, then we know we have another problem. All right, cool. So I've got spark out of that. That's good. Now, when you're checking spark, you want to make sure that each cylinder's got spark. If you've got one and you assume, it should be okay, no dramas, but then you go and realize that actually in 2 other cylinders you have no spark, it's obviously not going to fire. So at this stage we've only just got compression. So I'm just going to go through and just double check each one of the leads and make sure that we've actually got spark in all of the cylinders. Alright, so we've got spark in all of them, which is good. I'm just going to give the distributor a little bit of a turn while it's cranking, just to see if we can get it started, and maybe it's just ignition timing that is out. Alright, so there's nothing there. So I haven't exactly done anything since the last time. Doesn't even sound like it's going to want to start. So this is where you kind of look at the things like air, fuel, spark, compression, timing, all that sort of stuff. It sounds like it's cranking, it's getting fuel, but it's not even wanting to go whatsoever. So it could even just be the timing. So the firing order is out of the car. I might just go through and just quickly double check a couple of things just before we keep moving forward. All right, so I've just, it's getting a bit cold out here. I've just pulled the rocker cover off and I'm just checking the timing, gone back over everything. I took the air filters off. I've just got a little bit of carby cleaner down here. I'm just gonna spray a little bit down here. Just open the throttle right up. That way it's got a bit of fuel in there. That'll just help eliminate if it's a fueling issue or there's something else going on. So let's see what we can do here. All right, so give it a crank. Whoa. Okay. Well, that fired up. That was good. Good for a couple of few seconds. If I try and start that now, I can almost guarantee it's not going to start. Yeah, okay. All right, so now we know it is a fueling issue. So we need to work out what the heck is going on and why we don't have any fuel getting inside the engine. So essentially, it could be the jetting is wrong. It could also just be that the choke needs to be put on. So maybe we just try that to begin with. Yeah, starts to smell a little bit burnt. So that was probably just the extractors, I would assume. We'll just try it again. I'm just going to reconnect my little jumper wire. Just going to reconnect this up here, and then that one goes directly to the coil. There should be plenty of fuel in the float bowls. I'm just going to put the choke on and see if that fixes it, because I'd imagine maybe it's just because it's cold, but we'll soon find out in a second. So definitely a fueling issue. So what I'm going to do is just readjust the bottom of the carbies. I'm going to wind the screw all the way in at the bottom and then wind it out, I think, one full turn, so it'll be like 6 flats, and then that's standard, I think, from memory. I'm sure someone in the comment section can comment and let me know if I'm right or wrong. All right, try it again, see what happens. Oh, that sounded better. All right, let's give it a little bit more throttle body cleaner. Okay, so I don't want to be spraying too much in there, just enough to wet the whistle. Now, also, when we go to start this, because we have the rocker cover off at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm just going to start it. If I need to cut it at any time, I'm just going to grab this cable, we're going to disconnect it, that's going to cancel the coil, and therefore it's going to cause it to stop running. The worst case would obviously be it would start and there'd be no oil pressure, but another worst case scenario is what could happen is because it doesn't have the rocker cover on, oil could spurt up absolutely everywhere and make a mess. So I'd much prefer there to be a mess and know that there's oil pressure compared to having no oil pressure and destroying the engine. All right, here goes nothing. Whoa. Alright, let's try again now we've got the fuel pump connected. Oh, alright. So, the delivery process, delivery issue we have. So what I'm going to do is, I know this is a lot of back and forth, I'm just going to screw the rocker cover back on. I'm going to reconnect the fuel pump, put the choke on with the fuel pump running, and then just see if I can get this thing fired up. Once it goes, it should be fine. It should just run somewhat okay. I imagine it'd probably be obviously pretty high in the revs, but I'm just going to join these two wires together. That way it just makes it a bit easier and saves me trying to hold them there and squish them in the terminals. Okay, let's try this again for the 38th time. Here goes nothing. Put the choke on. Oh, just try it again. All right. Oh, it just fired. Still didn't have any response. Just give it a little bit of helping hand. Now you can use ether or some stuff that we call in Australia Star You Bastard to do this. So hopefully this will kick it in the gonads enough. Let's see what we can do. That throttle's closed. Choke's there. All right, let's try this. It's wanting to go. All right, so this is day 3. Well, it's actually like week 2 of trying to start this thing. So essentially, what I've found so far, it was only by chance. What I was doing the other night was I was trying to get the car started, but I got to the point where I was just getting over it. I was getting frustrated. I thought, you know what, it's just easier. Let's just leave it and let's just put this thing to bed. Let's do something else and then we'll come back to it later. So I'm underneath the car. I'm setting up the hydraulic clutch assembly when I realized there was some fluid leaking down from the engine. Now, as you all know, I did have a bit of fuel leak coming from, I guess you'd probably call it number 2 carburetor, which is the one closest to the firewall of the car, or like the internal cabin of the car. So it ended up being the float bowl gasket. So I thought, you know what, it's probably just fuel. It's probably just, you know, running down there. I better get it off the side of the block, because if I don't, it's going to stain it and it's going to cause it to eat away the paint, and then it's not going to be the best finish that I possibly could have to give back to the customer. So stuck my hand under the manifold and wiped it, and it didn't really feel like oil. It didn't really feel like fuel. It kind of smelled like fuel, but also on my finger was a chunk of Vaseline. Now, like I've said in many episodes before, it is worthwhile noting that when you rebuild an engine, fill the oil pump either full of oil or full of Vaseline. Now, I wondered to myself, how is it that Vaseline got outside the engine and the only place it was applied was, you guessed it, the oil pump. So I was looking around and I realized, and if you have a look at the picture beside me, there are 2 bolt holes that I was unsure of. One of them is a coolant drain plug. So the one on the right hand side is the drain plug, and the one facing vertically is the oil gallery plug. Now, oil gallery, that enables oil to travel throughout the engine under pressure. So this plug prevents any vacuum because it's sucking in air when the oil pump is cranking, and also prevents any pressure being generated. So when I was cranking it, that chunk of Vaseline, straight out that hole. Now, if you can hear my son in the background, that's the reason why you can hear all those noises, because he's watching his iPad. So here I am with a chunk of Vaseline in my hand, realized what it was, tried to put a standard bolt in there, and by tried, I mean I literally just did it up finger tight, and then realized, oh, hang on a minute, it's not the right thread. I did some investigating, there is a proper threaded bolt that needs to go in there. Now, going back to the previous episode when I stripped it all, I realized that when we pulled it apart, that bolt wasn't there to begin with. I wasn't sure and thought I'd ask Colin, never asked him. Reassembling it, I go back to this photo, I took this photo, put it amongst a couple of my friends, no one really got back to me, everyone kind of overlooked it, and then I forgot about it. So, good thing that we didn't have oil pressure. So all I did was I rang up Colin. Colin sent me a part from Sprite Parts. I threw it in, and within about 20 to 25 seconds of cranking, bang, oil pressure. Immediately, straight away, done, cool, excellent. Then we got onto the issue of it trying to start, or not being able to start, should I say. The problem that we're having was when you'd spray fuel down there, it would ignite. But then when it wasn't sprayed, you would find that it wouldn't run. So it tells me that it was lacking fuel in some area. So once I kind of sat down and thought about it, it was running way too lean. Now, lean, if you don't know already, lean is when it gets too much air and not enough fuel. Rich is the complete opposite, so it's getting too much fuel and not enough air. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm adding fuel, so it's obviously not getting it somewhere or enough. The inlet manifold is pretty straightforward. The carb is bolt to the manifold bolts the head. Pretty straightforward. Turns out the extractors that we're using is slightly thicker than the standard manifold that we're using, or the manifold anyway that the carb is bolted to. So if you refer to the photo beside me, you will see a picture of the two. So what I did to combat that was I took the standard nut and washer off. So anyone that works on classic minis or mokes or the A series engine knows that they're generally in line. You have that large flat washer followed by a nut. So what I did was took the nut and the washer off, packed a couple of smaller washers in behind there, put the larger washer on, tightened up the nut, bang, hey presto, thing fired up immediately. Cool. So what we now need to do is, I'm currently in the car, as you can see. I'm heading out to go and get the Morris from the exhaust shop. So today I took it off, I took my son down to Wollongong, we spent a day together, which was really nice. I'm now heading over to go get the Morris from the exhaust shop so I can bring it home. When I bring it home, I'm going to start it, I'm going to get it running, and I'm going to bed the camshaft in. Now, it is worthwhile noting that if you're using a performance camshaft, make sure that you follow the instructions to the T. Now, by following them, I mean you really need to make sure that you do this, because if you don't, you're not going to bed it in and you're not going to get maximum performance out of it. You can flatten off the top of the lobes on the camshaft, and it's just going to be a world of pain. So I'm sure someone in the comment section can comment down below as to the exact reason, but there is a science behind it, so make sure that you follow it. In our case, we're going to, we've been using Kent cam followers. So in order for us to bed those in, it needs to be 2000 RPM for 15 minutes. So we're going to get the car started, make sure we've got oil pressure. Once it's started with oil pressure, we're then going to be running it, keeping up the revs to about 2000 RPM until we can bed the camshaft in. Now, once the camshaft's bed in, it's not just a free reign of start up the car, let it idle for an hour and a half, let it, just putt around the block, start up just to move it or start up just to run it or whatever you're going to do. It is a case of literally get in the car and keep it on and off load the entire time for however long. It might be, half hour to an hour. The reason for this is you need to bed the pistons in. So you really need to be giving it the right foot, letting it come down. Right foot, come down. Right foot, come down. that enables the pistons and rings to wear in properly. Failure to do this is essentially meaning that you're never going to bed your pistons in, and because of that, you're going to lose compression inside the cylinder. So the next step after getting it fired and running, we're going to push it back in the sheds. I've got a mate coming around tonight. We're going to finish off the wiring in the engine bay. I'm going to finish behind the dash, get all the wiring done. It is very, very basic 1950s wiring, and anyone that's worked on a car of this age, even a classic Mini, there's not a lot to it. It's fairly straightforward. I think there's only 2 fuses as well, same as a Mini, so it's not overly hard. I just want to tidy it up and just make it look a bit more OEM, a little bit more modern, because it does have modern things on there. It does have LEDs and that sort of thing, so I really want to get that thing absolutely just on point with the wiring, and that way the customer knows that when they open their engine bay, there's no just loose wires and crappiness just hanging around. So once that's done, I'm going to move on to doing the clutch assembly. So I'm going to show you guys the setup that we're running at the moment anyway. I know I've been saying that for quite some time, so I do apologize. And then once we've done that, go over everything, triple check everything. Need to re-bleed the brakes because there's still a little bit of air in there. And then we'll go for a drive, get this thing tuned, go for a proper drive, go through a couple of heat cycles, and then the car's done. Fingers crossed.